everybody. This is Rory Comiskey with Igniting American Manufacturing. We talk about everything American manufacturing, from workforce development to nanocent innovation in industries and everything in between. And I have to tell you, I am super, super excited. I think, probably going to be my favorite guest on. Although she's many, many years younger than me, someone I actually consider a mentor. And when I want to talk about workforce development or the industry, it's somebody I always reach out to, Amelia Gulling. But before we do that, we have just a couple of quick little announcements. Okay, let's see. First one here. And this is the Berlin event, December 4th and 5th. And this is the future of a battery manufacturing gigafactory. And I will be the chairperson at this event, and we're going to have some phenomenal industry leaders there from Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, Cattle, the battery manufacturer, among others. And I'm really looking forward to chairing this event and have an opportunity to talk about smart manufacturing. That's what I'll be presenting, keynote on smart manufacturing and the smart factory. So, okay. Next announcement, and this one's super, super cool. And you know, this is a subject that I definitely want to talk about with Amelia. Intel just announced, and this is a phenomenal program, an in-house apprenticeship program. And it's affiliated with some of the local community colleges, and the folks that go through this apprenticeship program will wind up with an associate's degree. But they will be interns, paid interns. They will be working during their apprenticeship, and they'll be going to school, and it's very specific to the semiconductor industry and being a tech. So this is something that doesn't happen very often. And when Amelia and I talk about workforce development, you know, I always say it comes down to the trifecta. You know, it comes down to government support, academia, and I say, you know, things are so urgent right now. The heavy lifting needs to be done by the actual manufacturers themselves. And this is a prime example. This is one of the nicer programs that I've seen out there. And there's some really good programs out there, and we're going to talk about that. So, Amelia, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rory. Good to see you.
Well, it's good to see you too. It's always good to see you. So, you know, I'm not going to talk about your bio. You know, they say a picture says 1,000 words. And I asked you specifically to send me some photos, and you're probably going to send me 100 more. And I'm looking at these photos, and they all just, you know, pretty much within the last year, maybe 2 years. And I mean, I think this explains your bio more than anything. So we're going to scroll through this, and you know, if you could talk us through it a little bit. So the first picture is you at the Pentagon in D.C. at the podium, and from what I understand, you're working with the DoD, correct?
Yeah, so that was an interesting email to get to be invited to go speak at the Pentagon, mainly to talk about the works I've been doing with BattleBots. And the main piece that they loved about BattleBots, or that I love about BattleBots, when we're talking about workforce development, is how are we going to get students engaged? How are we going to pique interest? And BattleBots is the leading STEM entertainment brand in the nation, if not in the world. And we have viewership of 4 to 84 ages, and almost 50-50 females to male viewing it. And so that really piqued the interest of the Pentagon to look all across the DoD too, and all different branches of how can we leverage this and partner to start engaging families about STEM education and work, and how that translates into workforce development, which is some of the work that I'm doing with BattleBots as well.
Cool stuff. So I'm going to go to the next photo. And here's a BattleBots arena. This isn't the actual BattleBots show. This arena is at Southwest by Southwest down in Texas. And you actually kind of have a mobile unit down there. So you work with them quite a bit. So kind of cool stuff. How is Southwest by South? Austin's always cool with Southwest by Southwest. And you add BattleBots to the mix. I think that's even cooler. So
yes, this is one of my favorite projects I recently have done, again, with BattleBots, who's one of my main clients right now. But through talking to them and just what I spoke about at the Pentagon, once we pique students' interest, then what? What can they do? And so I've been able to work with BattleBots and launch our first ever collegiate BattleBots League and high school league. So students can now engage in the same combatant robotic sport as BattleBots. And this was one of our kickoff events that we partnered and did with the Army, actually, and hosted it at South by Southwest. And if anyone knows the show, we had Farouk there too. We had Team Witch Doctor and Hypershock. Scorpius was there as well, and people just came out in groves because it's, again, these are rock stars in the STEM space, and not just rock stars of being engineers. We have welders, we have plumbers. There's so many different stories that we can connect through this lens of BattleBots to various different jobs that are highly needed right now.
And I know, well, you and I have been involved, with Tesla and some of their stuff like that. Did you actually get a chance to go out? You're down in Austin to the Texas Gigafactory down there in Austin?
Oh, yeehaw. Yes. I love that. That one is awesome. And I got to take some of the BattleBots crew and some of the BattleBots crew, and then also some of the teams too. They were very excited. And actually there was a BattleBot member from Team Scorpius that works with Tesla as well. So again, kind of just connecting those workforce development pieces.
Well, both you and I have been connected with some workforce development stuff with Tesla. So yeah, I always love going out to Austin and seeing the Gigafactory. I actually raised my kids in Austin. So here's the next photo. This one's a little intimidating. This is you, and it looks like you're taking on the world here. Well, you got a rocket launcher on your shoulders. What's going on here?
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. I showed my kids that one too. This one is from Post the Pentagon. I was nominated by the Office of the Secretary of Defense to be part of a program that they call Joint Civilian Orientation Conference, the JCOC. And what it's for is that they select 40 different civilians across the nation that want to engage with their missions of the DoD, and that have a national platform to be able to speak about their experience and ask questions when we're with the DoD. And so part of our experiences during that conference was getting to do everything within the DoD that they would allow, as well as jumping off 32-foot towers and shooting M4s and lying in the dirt while we shoot those M4s, which is really fun. But then also just asking our servicemen and women and leaders there just questions and engaging on how we can further whatever focus we had, which of course mine was workforce development.
Okay, great. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I might want to sign up for it. My knees could hold up. So the next photo, and I actually was here at this one. This is you, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm assuming this is Worlds in Dallas. This is you when you work the REC Foundation at Worlds, Vex Worlds in Dallas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit. 100,000 people a day average. 1.4 million over 14 days, and a large event at the culmination for actual robots, and then another one for the drones. And those were full stadiums, like rock concert events. And you had asked me to go for years, and I don't know why I waited, but I went. It was mind-blowing for me, and I actually had the opportunity to bring some of my team and do some refereeing. I got to tell you, you ran that event. You had 1.4 million people there, several thousand volunteers, and you managed to assuage all the VIPs and get everything. You made it look easy. It was like a mini Olympics. I was so impressed by that. And then in the middle of that, you just got up there and calmly gave a speech. So impressive. Great event. I left there, and I've done several events with you since then. I left there with my feet about 6 inches off the ground, just watching these high school kids, compete and get so engaged, and the things they were doing with these robots, and the educational component, the team building component. Just a phenomenal event, great organization, and you did such a terrific job with that. Just super impressed. And again, it all leads back into workforce development, getting these kids, interested in engineering and technology and stuff like that. I'm going to move on here. So here's a picture of you with, if I get this right, a female two-star Air Force general. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. That again was part of the JCOC. And so we had some top leadership with us along for the journey, amongst all branches as well, that we got to engage with and ask a lot of questions with. And so she was a utter rock star. And I talked to her a lot with Air Force workforce development, and also the amount of females that were in the Air Force, which was a lot larger than some of the other branches. So we spoke a little bit about that and reasons why.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is definitely a fact. They are a great organization, and diversity there is, runs pretty strong, and it had a positive effect on that. So that's great to see. And the next one, here you are. You'll armed for bear here. That's correct. That's an M4, correct?
Yes. That again was the JCOC, and got to shoot some fun guns. And surprisingly or not, even though I'm from Nevada, this is like my second time shooting guns, and I apparently was really good at it. And as you know, Rory, I'm love any competition. So this was a competition amongst my fellow JCOCers of who could get the best shot as we laid down in the dirt and shot different targets that were popping up.
Yeah, you're sporting BattleBots swag everywhere. We had to have a conversation. You might have to hook me up with that. So next, moving on, it looks like you were up in Alaska. I know that, and you were Arctic Airborne, and looking like, I'm hoping that's a stuffed animal there.
Yes, it was tough. And actually, that is an Alaskan wolf. And they told us that that was a medium to small size of what they usually see out there. So, but this was the beginning of my JCOC experience. And, just it kind of represents how I tackled the week, if you would. I was ready to go and ask a million questions. And in this conference, that was heavily welcomed. And actually, the two-star general there that runs the Joint Alaskan Army and Air Force Base was amazing, and we were all ready to go to battle for him. He had amazing leadership skills, and really talked with them about how they train as well, their cadets there, and getting them ready, and how they support afterwards too. And they do some amazing things out there with limited resources, as you know, or harsh conditions.
Yep. And then the next one, you're up here. It looks like you're at the 11th Airborne headquarters up in Alaska. And I'm going to move on a little bit. In the last photo here, that looks like a four-star general. Who's that?
Yes, that was actually the Secretary of the Army that I got to speak with, and then a four-star general of Army Future Command, General Rainey. And so we got to engage them. General Rainey is a huge BattleBots fan. So it was just another example of the entertainment and the brand of what is BattleBots is well known, and everyone wants to participate and have fun in it. And they were there, and actually I had the general or the Secretary of the Army and the general doing smaller robots and driving them around, and they had a blast. Then they watched the competition that we hosted there for colleges and high schools.
Okay. So I understand it looks like you had a great time with them and with our military folks, which is always a cool stuff, and you got to do a lot of cool stuff. What was your perception? Your perception of the military and military training changed over the course of your time with them, or did it stay the same way?
Oh, it changed a lot, actually. My perception from working with Army Cadet Command, which is our our Rossi and then our Junior Rossi teams that are in high school and colleges. One of the things I kept hearing was we need to help and get them training before they enter. And I realized when I was there that DoD and all the branches are ready for someone to come in with zero training. And they're now, just as we're finding in industry, as you had mentioned with that Intel program, they're now having to do training because they can't rely on others for these cadets to be ready to go. So to do quick demand to get skills and stuff done, they have these amazing hands-on training programs. One of the things I was picking up then was when I work with veterans and other programs, I'm still hearing the same thing, that these veterans need trainings and they need more assistance to get into the workforce. And I don't know if that is entirely true. I think we just need to connect them. And that is something, as you know, Rory, that I have done with industry and school districts and K through 12, is that they want the same thing. They're going for the same thing. They just don't know how to connect what they're already doing. And I'm seeing a real opportunity too across a lot of these DoD branches, that our veterans are coming out with training and skill sets, but they're not being aligned to what workforce has been asking for in basic just certifications. So we just need to connect what they've already learned with what's out there. Is more what I'm thinking now,
Yeah.
post.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, and, Fusion IRX, we do a lot of, we work in manufacturing, obviously, and that's what the show's about. But my firm works particularly in the high-tech sector, and we do a lot of commissioning in these high-tech facilities. And I love recruiting right out of the Air Force, and particularly the Navy nuclear fleet. You're right, they do not need a whole lot of training. They have a slightly different, manufacturing is a lot like the military in that we use a lot of acronyms. But if you can commission a Navy sub, a nuclear sub, you can commission a factory. And we just use different names and different acronyms. There's very little upskilling. I could take someone from the Navy nuke fleet and in 2 months have them be an outstanding leader in a factory running a commissioning project. It takes very little, but they come out and they don't have that piece of paper, that certification, say they're qualified to do that. So real simple, the military, they have these skills, and we just need to get certifications. And that doesn't apply for the military. We need standardization in certifications and nanodegrees across the board, and that's something we really need to work on. So, and that's what, a space that you and I talk about quite a bit. So, the military is a great resource, and we can help those folks transition. I think the opportunities out there. We talk about this deficit, in manufacturing in particular, of anywhere, and the number keeps changing. Depending on who you ask and what poll you ask, I'm hearing up to 3.5 million deficit by 2030 in our workforce. And specifically just in semiconductor, depending on who you ask, I'm hearing numbers, a deficit of 56,000 to 118,000. So, if we can take these, this show's about igniting American manufacturing, and we are at a crucible here with reshoring and all the nascent innovation. We have an opportunity to ignite American manufacturing. We have an opportunity to grow our middle class and prosper. And probably our biggest constraint is workforce development. So if we can plug in our transitioning military, or just certify other folks, that's going to help. So, when Intel came out with their program, there was one of the gentlemen who was ahead of it. He says, this is all hands evolution. That's a military term. He must be a Navy man. It's all hands evolution. So it's going to take academia. It's going to take the heavy lifting by manufacturing. It's going to take some government help, but our military are just a phenomenal resource. So, Amelia, what do we need to what do we need to do? So the needle, has moved. The pendulum is moving. You and I have been talking about workforce development for quite a while, and there's a point in here. I promise. There's a point in here. Brian Sexton, my co-host, is not here today, but he asked me, who do we need to get involved? And I always mention your name. But here's the thing: there's more voices added to the equation right now, and it's connecting those voices and working together and collaborating and standardizing. Standardizing and getting on the same page and all working collaboratively. But I applaud what you've been doing. Tell me a little bit. Tell me a little about your roots. What got So you're a subject matter expert when it comes to workforce development. Probably, as far as I know, the subject matter expert. You've worked in government. You worked in education. You worked with BattleBots. You worked with VEX, this huge, organization. Now you're working with the DoD. I mean, the Pentagon calls up Amelia. You know what? A little segue here. I understand they gave you a token when you left your program. They gave you, and as a retired military person, I have a challenge coin. I understand you got a very special challenge coin. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, they gave, and I didn't even know what a challenge coin was. So before this, which is why this program was meant for me to really understand more of that military culture. But yes, I got a very high ranking. I was told challenge coin. So if we go out for drinks, Rory, I might need to put one on the bar for you.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to find a couple in my drawer. I have a couple of challenge coins with me. So, I think, as far as a voice, you're one of the leading voices out there. I think, the next part here is figuring out the standardization. So I want to go back to my previous point. I wanted to talk about that coin there. I thought that was kind of cool. You're going to have to show it to me one of these days. So we have this funding rolling in now. We have Purdue, has a degree program. ASU's followed suit. Texas, University of Texas just announced a program. Intel's doing their bit. There's a bunch of money rolling in. There's a bunch of grants going out there. How do we make sure that these programs are pragmatic and that we're spending the money and getting the most bang for our buck? And that's the thing that concerns me. The government, and I laugh about this. The government and academia is very good at spending money. Getting it where it needs to be and getting bang for the buck is important. So, you and I have been begging for funding for a while. My biggest concern now is that we're getting bang. What do we need to do there? How do we harness this? How do we standardize? What's the next step?
Well, the CHIPS Act was wonderful because it was a mad rush for more manufacturing money, but they added workforce development pieces. If you would problem, and I wouldn't ever say problem because it's more people are talking about workforce development, but it's a vague term. And it's a very long spectrum of when it begins and when it ends. And traditionally, we have focused not in higher education when we talk about workforce development. We focused on all things before even higher education or intermediate, or just to get someone back into the pipeline. Now, higher education, as well as we're seeing industry, has a bigger role because the landscape is changing, right? And so they are working really great. The Purdue programs, I've seen the other ones, the Texas one you're talking about too, they're coming together and make sure that they can service their students in that general workforce area if they stay in the same vicinity. To your point, what I think a lot of people are missing, and that we're not having, what I'm seeing across the area is really engaging more technical colleges and then K through 12. And there's kind of an overlap between technical colleges and K through 12, which we call the career technical education, so CTE, which they are trying to move just as quickly. But as we are looking at these jobs coming out, a lot of them only need a 2-year degree, if that. And people will train right out of high school, which we experienced with some of the programs that Tesla had done at those wonderful signing days. So I think just the thought of what workforce development means and who's traditionally been involved is gone, and people are having a hard time and trying to see where they fit now in that. And we just haven't had a moment to really look at it as a nation, how this is working as this industry is just rapidly growing. But even with that, I'm just so happy that people are realizing that this has to be part of the solution. You can build as many factories as you want and manufacturing facilities, but we have now shown that we don't have the workforce, and now that's being a focus. So that's wonderful in itself. But everyone's kind of doing it in their own little ways as quickly as possible. And that's what we're seeing now. So it's great. Some new innovative programs are coming out of it, like you said, with the Intel one. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of those in different areas just to meet the specific geographic demand that they have.
Yeah. Well, I have a great lineup of guests in the next coming weeks. Harry Moser from the Reshoring Initiative, and he's up in D.C. quite a bit. Terry Iverson with Champion Now, and then some folks, some DOD folks I know as well. I think we just need to pull all those voices together and start collaborating a little bit more. What you said about CTE, so important. And Mike Rowe talks about workforce development all the time. I think he was standing up and cheering when you started talking about not everything needs a 4-year degree. 2-year degrees are suffice at times. And I talk about that considerably. Purdue is they have a 4-year program, and UT, those are 4-year programs. A lot of the community colleges are doing the nano degrees and micro certifications. I think they're probably as important, and maybe, and what, I'm going to go ahead and say, probably more important right now, because they meet our needs urgently, and they encourage folks that won't do the 4-year thing or can't do the 4-year thing. So
I don't know if you know this, Rory, I was a first generation college student. So a big part of my platform and when speaking to folks is not going through a traditional 4-year university, not because I don't love education. I went on to get a master's degree and I will forever be a lifelong learner, but because not everyone has the option to. And so when we are looking at workforce development, it excites me. And like I mentioned, those signing days that we would do at Clark County for Tesla, providing other pathways and opportunities for folks to have really great careers and to get education through the training that they do that Tesla funded or Intel funds, and to be very successful in this area and not doing it in what we have deemed a traditional pathway. And if we need all these a demand of workforce, then we need to expand our horizons on how people get there and what their pathway in is. And that also goes with veterans and reentry. I've been talking to actually some women's shelter groups because they do a lot of workforce development to get these women or single moms back into the workforce so they can be secure with their kids. And a lot of times they haven't ever looked at advanced manufacturing or getting a technical degree to get back in there. It's been a lot of education, nursing. And so those are some of the things too, of just changing our perception of how things have used to be or who has usually been in those positions. And again, we have a huge demand and we need to look at how we reach these diverse groups that traditionally haven't been in there, opportunities for them, but needs for work as well, needs for the workers in industry as well.
Yeah. Well, Amelia, you definitely are a subject matter expert. We have 2 issues here, and in there lies a lot of opportunity. To me, there's a misnomer the CHIP Act is spurring on reshoring. I think it's accelerating reshoring. We were reshoring for a lot of reasons, but beyond reshoring, manufacturing in this country was growing. And it's growing globally. We have the EV ecosystem, which is nanoscent in nature and growing, and Elon Musk put it on the map in the United States. So, that's whole industries, and that's an ecosystem. That's, making the battery, that's making the car, that's end user infrastructure for on the highway, the mineral processing, the mining, and then the recycling. So it's a whole ecosystem. That's all new, and that's has generated needs. Semiconductor, besides the fact, we're reshoring for security and digital sovereignty, it's just growing, period. The need. So that EV car, any car, requires over 1,000 chips. So as with EV grows, the demand for chip grows, data, the global data sphere, and that's not necessarily manufacturing. I include it as manufacturing. Every time you take a picture, I load it up to Instagram, and that happens, and I'm broken record here, that happens over 1 million times a minute. We're filling up data centers. And then AI, the advent of AI, AI burns through data, way quicker than your photo does. So, that's exponential growth there. And then the last piece of that puzzle, so data centers, AI, semiconductor chips, the EV ecosystem, and a plethora of other industry. Those are urgent needs. Powering them and the facilities to power them and building the facilities, the manufacturing and the power plants, to power them. These are urgent needs. They're global needs. In the United States, they're exacerbated by the reshoring efforts. So, we have this urgent need as innovation grows, and we have our reshoring efforts on top of it. We have an opportunity right now to do a couple of things. We have an opportunity to upskill our labor force. We have an opportunity to move people up into the middle class roles and put them in good paying manufacturing jobs. And depending on who you ask, manufacturing jobs earn anywhere from 25 to 30% more than the average job. These are good paying jobs where you can feed your family and own a home and have that American dream. So we have opportunity to uplift our middle class. And when the middle class is uplifted, it elevates everybody. It's simple. It's just it's a fact that's tried and true. It's what made this country great one time. The second part of that equation, ESG, with smart manufacturing and all these tools, if we do this right, we can build a better world, a better connected world. We're protecting, we're uplifting the middle class, but we're protecting our local communities and our global communities as a whole. So, there's a ton of opportunity. It's global, but the United States, it's probably even greater. The vacuum that was left when we offshored and what it did to this country, we're still reaping the effects. And we have an opportunity to reverse that. And we have an opportunity to do it right. And folks like you, and you've been in this conversation for a while now, and we've got some added voices. Let's start putting people together and focusing and spend this money wisely and uplift everybody. What you do, I applaud you, and you are a manufacturing champion, a workforce champion, and I look forward to having you back. We'll talk about many more subjects, but Amelia, always good to have you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for being a manufacturing and workforce champion.
Oh, always great to see you, Rory. Thanks.
Cut. All right, I got a little soapboxy at the end there, Amelia.